Welcome back to English and Popcorn. Today we're learning English through one of the most beloved movies of all time, Forrest Gump. This is the incredible life story of Forrest Gump, a man who might not be the smartest, but who lives with an open heart, follows his instincts, and changes the world in ways he never imagined. In this video, we'll follow Forrest from his childhood in Alabama to his adventures across America. Along the way, you'll practice your English listening and storytelling skills while experiencing moments of love, heartbreak, courage, and triumph. So grab your popcorn, sit back, and let's dive into the extraordinary life of Forrest Gump. Our story begins on a quiet street in Greenbow, Alabama. A feather floats gently through the sky and lands at the feet of a man sitting on a bench. This man is Forrest Gump. He wears a simple suit, holds a box of chocolates, and begins to share his life story with whoever sits next to him. Forrest Gump, he says, "My mama always said life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." Forrest takes us back to his childhood. As a little boy, Forrest had a curved spine, and doctors gave him leg braces to help him walk straight. Other kids teased him and called him names, but his mother always told him he was no different from anyone else. She said, "Don't ever let anyone tell you they're better than you, Forrest." One day, young Forrest meets a girl named Jenny on the school bus. She's the first person to show him kindness. Jenny invites Forrest to sit with her, and from that moment, she becomes his very best friend. Forrest says, "Me and Jenny goes together like peas and carrots." But school is not always easy for Forrest. Some boys bully him and throw rocks at him. One day, as Forrest tries to run away, something incredible happens. His leg braces break apart and he runs faster than he ever has before. Jenny shouts, "Run, Forrest, run!" And he does. Forrest discovers that even though he may not be the smartest kid, he can run faster than almost anyone. Forrest spends much of his childhood running. He runs everywhere, away from bullies, down dirt roads, through fields, and running becomes his greatest talent. We also get to see the loving relationship between Forrest and his mother. She teaches him about life, about love, and about having faith in yourself. When the local school principal refuses to let Forrest attend because of his low IQ, Mama fights for her son's right to a normal education. She believes Forrest can do anything he sets his mind to, and her love gives him strength. This first part of the story is about resilience and love. Forrest starts his life with challenges, but he learns to rise above them with the support of his mother and Jenny. His childhood shapes him into someone who is kind, loyal, and determined, qualities that will guide him through every chapter of his extraordinary life. As Forrest grows older, his running ability continues to amaze everyone around him. One day, while he's running through town, a football coach notices just how fast he is. This coach offers Forrest a scholarship to play football at the University of Alabama. Forrest is shocked. Him going to college? But his mama is proud and encourages him to go. "You're the same as anybody else," she reminds him. And so Forrest heads off to college, becoming the first in his family to attend. At the University of Alabama, Forrest becomes a football star. His speed on the field helps his team win games, and soon he is running touchdowns in front of thousands of cheering fans. Forrest is even invited to meet President John F. Kennedy at the White House after winning a national championship. When the president asks him how he feels, Forrest simply replies, "I gotta pee." But Forrest's life is not only about football. We also see him witness important moments in history. He is present when Governor George Wallace stands in the doorway to block African American students from entering the university. Forrest doesn't fully understand the politics, but he's right there as history unfolds. After graduation, Forrest is unsure about what to do next. While walking down the street, he sees a group of Army recruiters. One of them asks if he has thought about his future. Forrest says, I think I'll go home now. But instead of going home, he decides to join the U.S. Army. Forrest heads off to boot camp, where he learns to follow orders. The drill sergeants love him because he listens carefully and does exactly what they say. "Gump, you're a damn genius!" one of them shouts when Forrest quickly assembles his rifle. It's in the Army that Forrest meets one of the most important friends of his life, Benjamin Buford Blue, but everyone calls him Bubba. Bubba comes from a family of shrimpers and spends every moment talking about shrimp. Fried shrimp, boiled shrimp, shrimp stew, shrimp sandwiches, he lists them all. Bubba tells Forrest that when the war is over, he wants to buy a shrimping boat and start a business. Forrest agrees to join him, promising that one day they'll be partners. This chapter of Forrest's life shows his natural ability to adapt to new situations. Whether it's football or the Army, Forrest just does what he's told, and he does it well. His honest, hard-working nature earns him respect everywhere he goes, even if he doesn't always understand what's happening around him. Forrest's next adventure takes him far from home, all the way to Vietnam. After completing basic training, he is sent overseas with Bubba. The two of them stick together, sharing stories and dreams of their future shrimping business. Forrest explains life in Vietnam in his simple way. He says it rains all the time, little bitty stinkin' rain and big all-fat rain. The soldiers walk through mud, sleep in wet tents, and wait for something to happen. Forrest just follows orders, keeping his head down and doing his job. Lieutenant Dan Taylor is the leader of Forrest's platoon. He is tough, strict, and determined to lead his men through the war. Forrest respects him and always listens carefully to his commands. Bubba keeps talking about shrimp, planning every detail of their future company. Then, one day, everything changes. The soldiers are walking through the jungle when they are suddenly ambushed. Gunfire explodes from every direction, and chaos takes over. Forrest remembers Lieutenant Dan's order, "Get down, shut up!" But then he hears screaming. His fellow soldiers are wounded. Forrest starts running because that's what he does best. But once he reaches safety, he remembers Bubba is still out there. So Forrest runs back into the jungle to find him. Along the way, he discovers other wounded soldiers. Each time he picks them up and carries them to safety before going back again. Finally, Forrest finds Lieutenant Dan, who has been badly injured. Dan shouts at Forrest to leave him there, but Forrest refuses. He carries Dan out of the jungle and saves his life. When Forrest finally finds Bubba, it's too late. Bubba has been shot and is dying. Forrest holds him in his arms as Bubba quietly says, "I want to go home." Bubba dies right there in the riverbank, and Forrest loses his best friend. After the ambush, Forrest is wounded too, shot in the backside. He is sent to a military hospital where he spends time recovering. There, he discovers a new skill, ping pong. Forrest becomes so good at ping pong that he's asked to play for the U.S. Army team. He says the only thing I could do was play ping pong. This chapter is one of the most emotional parts of Forrest's story. We see his courage, his loyalty, and his ability to keep going even after losing his best friend. Forrest doesn't see himself as a hero, but he saves many lives that day, proving that even a simple man can do something extraordinary when it matters most. After recovering from his injury, Forrest becomes famous in the Army for his ping pong skills. He plays against other soldiers, then against professional players. And soon he is sent to play international matches, even traveling to China as part of ping pong diplomacy. Forrest becomes a minor celebrity, appearing on television and meeting the president again, this time Richard Nixon. When Forrest's service ends, he receives the Medal of Honor for saving his fellow soldiers in Vietnam, including Lieutenant Dan. Forrest visits Dan in the hospital and sees that he's bitter and angry. Dan lost both his legs in the war, and he believes his life is over. He resents Forrest for saving him, saying that he should have died with honor on the battlefield like the rest of his family. Forrest doesn't argue. He simply tells Dan he was just trying to save his friend.
When Forrest returns home, he remembers the promise he made to Bubba to start a shrimping business. Using the money he earned from ping pong endorsements, Forrest buys a shrimping boat and names it the Jenny, after the girl he has loved since childhood. At first, shrimping is a disaster. Forrest has no idea what he's doing, and day after day he pulls up empty nets. People laugh at him and say he's wasting his time. Just when it seems like the business is going to fail, Lieutenant Dan shows up. He keeps his promise to join Forrest as his first mate. Then a powerful hurricane hits the Gulf Coast. Every other shrimp boat is destroyed, except for the Jenny. When the storm passes, Forrest and Dan are the only ones left with a working boat. Suddenly, their business is the only source of shrimp in the area, and they begin catching huge amounts every day. The Bubba Gump Shrimp Company becomes a huge success. Forrest and Dan become wealthy, and Forrest keeps his promise by giving half of his profits to Bubba's family. Lieutenant Dan, who once felt hopeless, finds new purpose in life. He invests their money wisely and even gets prosthetic legs, learning to walk again. Forrest says that Lieutenant Dan finally made his peace with God. This chapter of Forrest's life is about loyalty and keeping promises. Even though Bubba is gone, Forrest honors his friend's dream and turns it into reality. And in the process, he helps Lieutenant Dan find a new reason to live. Even though Forrest becomes wealthy and successful, his heart still longs for Jenny. Throughout his life, she has come and gone many times, always leaving him wondering where she is and what she's doing. One day, Jenny returns and stays with Forrest for a while. They spend time together like the old days, walking, talking, and enjoying the simple things in life. Forrest loves her deeply, but Jenny is restless. She has been living a wild, troubled life, searching for happiness but never finding it. One night, after a long conversation, Jenny and Forrest sleep together. Forrest is overjoyed, believing that this means they will finally be together. But the next morning, Jenny leaves without saying goodbye. Forrest is heartbroken. Not knowing what else to do, Forrest starts running. At first, he just runs to clear his mind. But then he keeps running across town, across the state, and eventually across the entire country. He runs through deserts, mountains, rain, and snow. People start to notice him and begin running with him, thinking he is on some great mission. Forrest says, "I just felt like running." For 3 years, Forrest keeps running back and forth across America until one day he simply stops. "I'm pretty tired," he says. "I think I'll go home now." When Forrest returns home, he receives a letter from Jenny asking him to visit her. Forrest travels to see her, and this is where he learns that Jenny has a young son, and the boy's name is Forrest. Jenny tells him, "He's your son." Forrest is shocked and nervous, asking if the boy is smart. Jenny assures him that their son is very bright. Forrest is overjoyed to finally have a family, but Jenny has sad news. She is sick with a virus that doctors cannot cure. Knowing she doesn't have much time left, Jenny asks Forrest to marry her. They have a small wedding in front of Forrest's house, surrounded by people who love them. Forrest says, "It was the happiest day of my life." This chapter of Forrest's story is about love, heartbreak, and finding purpose. Forrest never gives up on Jenny, no matter how many times she leaves. His running across America shows that sometimes we need to keep moving forward, even when we don't know why, until life leads us to where we are meant to be. After marrying Jenny, Forrest finally feels like his life has come full circle. For the first time, he has everything he ever wanted: the woman he loves and a family of his own. But their happiness is short-lived. Jenny's illness gets worse, and soon she passes away, leaving Forrest and their young son behind. Forrest is devastated, but he stays strong for his boy, Forrest Jr. He learns how to be a father, making breakfast, taking him to school, reading bedtime stories, and teaching him the lessons his own mama taught him. One of the most emotional scenes in the movie comes when Forrest stands at Jenny's grave. He speaks to her softly, telling her how smart their son is and how proud she would be of him. Forrest says he misses her every day and wishes she could see how beautiful their life has become. Life slows down for Forrest. He spends his days raising his son and sitting quietly, reflecting on everything that has happened. He thinks about Mama, Bubba, Lieutenant Dan, and Jenny. Forrest wonders whether life is guided by destiny, or if it's just random, like a feather floating on the breeze. I don't know if we each have a destiny, or if we're all just floating around accidental-like, he says. In the final scene, Forrest walks with his son to the school bus stop. Forrest Jr. is nervous about his first day of school, but Forrest reassures him that he will be fine. As the bus drives away, Forrest sits down on the same tree stump where he once waited for the school bus as a child. A feather floats back into the air, just like at the beginning of the movie, reminding us that life goes on. Forrest's story teaches us about love, kindness, and resilience. He faces heartbreak, war, success, loss, and joy. And through it all, he remains honest, loyal, and good-hearted. Forrest may not be the smartest man, but he reminds us that life is not about being perfect. It's about loving deeply, keeping your promises, and always moving forward. As Forrest once said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. And that's the story of Forrest Gump, a man who showed us that life can be funny, sad, and beautiful all at once. Forrest's story teaches us that no matter where you come from or what challenges you face, you can still live a meaningful life. Sometimes you just have to keep running, keep loving, and keep believing, even when things get hard. I hope this video helped you not only practice your English, but also inspired you to look at life with a little more hope and courage. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to English and Popcorn, and share it with someone who loves great stories. And remember, like Forrest's mama said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.